All right. That's the first time I've used the gavel. Again, thank you for coming and being patient through our agenda. We're going to start off with a public hearing for item number 7. This is Wildflower, Village Plan Area 1, located at west and north of Harvest Hills and north of SR 73. We're going to turn the time over to Kimber, our director.
All right, I'm sure this is the item everyone has stuck around waiting for, and I am going to delay you for 30 seconds more really quick, because I do want to introduce everybody to our brand new planner, Jeff. Go ahead and stand up. It's his first week, so don't be too mean to him yet. And I just wanted to introduce you to him so that if this next item goes a little long, he can not have to stay because he's not working on this item. So there you go. Welcome to Jeff. You are going to have a chance to work with him a lot here soon, and we're just really excited to have him on board. So
welcome,
with that,
Jeff.
Now we'll move on to Wildflower.
All right.
This is Village Plan 1. This is located west and north of Harvest Hills and north of SR 73. So here you can see the location. Maybe, if the mouse works, because it's too far away from the computer. All right, well, you can see the blue dot there. It is that entire piece of property immediately behind Harvest Hills. All right, and it's jumpy. Okay, here we go, right up here. And so now the map is turned. North is now to the left. You can see Redwood Road up above here. And there we go, right along here. This is Redwood Road. Here's the north. This is 2100 where it comes in from Lehigh, and here is a portion of Harvest Hills. Now what you're looking at here is the community plan, which was approved in the spring of 2015, so just about a year and a half ago. As part of this agreement, as part of this master development agreement, their community plan, they were approved for about 1,465 or 1,468 units, residential units. The majority of those units are single family, that's that cream color that you're seeing there, with a portion of the property being reserved for some multifamily, that's the turquoise that you're seeing in the middle of the bottom there, and then a portion of the property left for regional commercial development, and that's the purple that you're seeing on the right. Now the property to the right, the purple, that will be for commercial. The road that goes through that is State Road 73, known as Crossroads in our city. The gray area in the middle, that is the future Mountain View corridor. And as part of this development, the Mountain View corridor acreage was preserved, and the density that would have been on that acreage was transferred into the development along the sides. What you're seeing here tonight is the first village plan, which is all of the property east of Mountain View corridor, so the property that's between Mountain View corridor and Harvest Hills. And what do you know, my mouse decides to work. So we're looking at this tonight. A close-up of these entitlements here. You can see residential, single family, you're looking at about just over 1,000 units overall in the whole development, and then multifamily 442, so here's the approval of 1,468. And then it goes into more detail as to park acreage, acreage for commercial, etc. Here is what you're looking at tonight, which is a portion of that property and a portion of that development. They are looking to allocate 569 of their approved residential units to this property, as well as 2 non-residential ERUs, or equivalent residential units, for a church site. Additionally, it includes parks, master planned roads, etc. So this is on the next screen, or sorry, it's 2 pages from here. But here you can see the different uses up behind Harvest Hills. A church site, green for park space, additional park space on the other side of the Mountain View corridor, and then yellow for the single-family residential development. Now, as part of this plan, the community plan required that they transition the density from the existing Harvest Hills lots into smaller lots within their development. So what you'll see is where there are larger lots along the periphery, you also see larger lots within the plan for Wildflower. So again, some slightly larger lots transitioning into smaller. In some cases, here you have smaller lots in the Harvest Hills area transitioning out to larger lots the other direction, but for the most part, they are matching development so that they're not putting small lots right next to larger lots in Harvest Hills. You can see the proposal includes some curved setbacks, and what that does is, while the street does not curve as much, so here's a good example. You can see this street here, it curves a little bit, but the setbacks actually curve more. And what that does is it creates a feeling of openness and makes for a better environment in that development. The applicants are here to answer questions about the layout as well and speak more to that. So this is the table we were just looking at in close-up that shows how many lots they're proposing and how that is consistent with the community plan. Now, in your packet, you had a very long report, which included all the pages in the community plan, in the village plan. Now, the community plan already addressed some of the things that you're looking at, such as approval of the lot sizes, approval of the setbacks, approval of the trails and some of the road cross sections, and so on. The village plan goes into more detail. It is including additional information on architecture. So in the community plan, it addressed all of these items here. It also, in the village plan, they go into even more detail on these items. Now, in the code analysis section of your report, you saw several sections. One was what is required to be in a village plan, and all of those items have been provided. There are some deviations from Title 19, and for members of the public, Title 19 is the development code that most new developments have to comply with. With a community plan and village plan, developments are allowed to ask for deviations. Now, some of those things have already been approved in the community plan, and that includes some variations to setback requirements, some variations to lot sizes. They are requesting some deviations to signage, and that was analyzed in your report, and that has not yet been approved, so that is for your recommendation tonight. Parks are also, there are some proposed community level parks, actually one large community park that is proposed. The Parks Department has reviewed that. It is up to the City Council to decide whether they'll be accepting that park or not. However, if the city does accept that park and maintain it, the Parks Department has given a list of requirements, and those that park would have to be designed to meet city standards. So here you can see a comparison of the signage. Entry feature sign, there are two different types that the development is asking for. The city code currently permits one per primary entrance, a maximum height of 20 feet, and maximum text height of 10 feet. So if you can envision a large architectural feature like a pole or artistic arch of some sort, the signage portion where it says the name of the development can only be 10 feet tall. The applicants are requesting a higher height, however fewer, with only 2 per community, and their maximum text height is actually lower at 5 feet 2 inches. They are also asking for some additional entry features for the individual neighborhoods with a max height of 6 feet, 1 per neighborhood, and a maximum text height of 5 feet. So that's actually less than the city code would allow, more restrictive. So in exchange for the smaller monument signs, they're asking for 2 larger ones. And then they're also asking for additional builder directional signs. This maximum height, what they're asking for is within the city standard. They are asking for additional number of signage potentially, so you'll notice one of the conditions of approval is to put a maximum number of signs on the project. And I'm trying to, Kara, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So you have several options in your staff report. The staff recommended option is a positive recommendation to the City Council with the findings and conditions in your staff report. They have made most of the red lines that have been requested by staff with just a few items remaining. Now, just to remind everyone, this is not the last time you'll see them before building permits go in or building permits are pulled and construction begins. This is the next phase, which allows them to begin some of their master level infrastructure improvements, and then also begin submitting for subdivision plats. And each one of those subdivision plats will come to the Planning Commission for a public hearing and the City Council for approval. So you have one more chance to review these before the lots are final. With that, it is a public hearing. No public comment has been received. Mailed notice went out to all property owners within 300 feet and posted in numerous locations. Some of these conditions here, if you have any questions, we can speak to those. Also, as always, your alternatives are continuance or forwarding a negative recommendation. The applicants are here to answer questions, and I'll turn it back to the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Kimber. Would the applicant like to come forward? would you please state your names and your addresses for the record?
Here we go. My name is Nate Shook.
Yes, please join us. Make yourselves comfortable. And then turn on the mic if you would.
My name is Nate Ship. I represent the applicant tonight. I appreciate your time and the time of your staff. I was reminded as I was sitting that the last time I was here, I know we've had a couple of work sessions, but since the last time we were here getting approval on our community plan, my wife was going into labor. I'm pleased to let you know that my 2-year-old daughter's doing just fine. So we've taken enough time, I think, getting through this, and hopefully that's reflected in what we're going to be able to present to you tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Nathan.
I'm Brian Flam, 1099 West, South Jordan Parkway.
Okay. Did you want to add anything else to the presentation that was given tonight?
No, I think we just go ahead and reserve comment for questions that you might have as we go through it.
All right. Let's do that. Did you have something else you wanted to say? Okay. Given that this is a public hearing, we'll open up public comment now for item number 7, Wildflower Village Plan Area number 1. If you have something to say, please come forward to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to about 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Heather Lauder at 591 West Cantaloupe Court, and I apologize in advance. I haven't done a whole lot of research as to finding out what's going on here, so my questions may be redundant. Some of you have been here before. Wondering, I live in Harvest Hills, really adjacent. I did not receive any notice, but I'm here anyway. So expected pricing of the single family homes, I know it's hard to say because market conditions would have a lot to do with that, but when do you intend to start selling, and what would expected pricing be?
Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and get to the answers after you're done. But go ahead.
Okay.
Please continue.
Okay, and then really just in the same vein, just kind of expected pricing, proposed square footage of the lots and the homes. And then the other big question that I've been asked to find out is how's it going to impact the schools? Will the children be going to Harvest Elementary and the same schools that the Harvest Hills kids are already going to? They seem to be pretty crowded already. And then my other question is access. The construction when when Alpine Homes was building in the second phase of Harvest Hills, I was afraid for the children playing in the streets because trucks were zipping through Harvest Hills. So access for construction and for future residents is also a concern.
Okay, thank you. We will get back to everybody's questions. I'm taking notes, and we'll see if we can address those after the public comment. Anybody else?
My name is Ray Walker. I live on 458 Autumn Sky Drive. My question, I think, is to the Planning Commission. We just heard a gentleman earlier tonight talk about how we have to build a pump on the lake to bring water for people that live in the city, and how we had 2 wells that failed this year. My concern is if we're bringing in 1,000 new homes, how are we going to be able to provide water for them? Are we going to end up becoming like Lehigh did, who continued to build, and then they had to put everybody on water restriction? I don't personally want to see that happen, and I think that responsibly we need to look at and make sure our water supply is shored up before we start bringing more and more people into the city. So that's the one question I have. The other one is my concern also is on this north-south road coming through above where the church is. I personally feel that the roads in Harvest Hills are way too narrow. That looks like that's going to be quite a thoroughfare for people traveling through, and I'm afraid there's going to be some kids that might get killed with people going 35 miles an hour. I don't know if there's a way to widen the streets in Harvest Hills at all to make it more of a conducive to the type of traffic that looks like is going to be going through that area there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
My name is Kevin Ballard. I'm at 2461 Nectar Way. I have, I think, 3 questions. The first, where we're at is where that weird flag lot on Nectar Way, right up against the hill. and that hill behind us is really steep, and it looks like that road isn't even at the crest of the hill. My perception could be off.
Tell her to go up or down with the mouse. We see where the mouse disappeared.
Yep. And so that hill right behind us is super steep. I'm just wondering what we're doing about that. It seems weird to kind of, feels like if it's unmodified, the house is going to be stuck in the hill. It's really steep and seemed ideal for some green space. Curious about that. I'm kind of wondering, and maybe that question's already been posed, just timing for the different phases. I think the church, I think Shelley Barch said that the church seemed to be the next thing, or the first thing that would be going in. Some of this other stuff, I think I had heard, might be contingent on that 2100 North coming through. And then the last one, this is just curiosity, and my premise could be wrong, but my assumption would be that UDOT paid some sort of compensation for the land they're taking for Mountain View Corridor. Seems, but yet we're allocating the same number of units as there were before Mountain View Corridor. So it seems weird that if that premise is correct, the developer is getting compensation from UDOT, but keeping the same number of units and increasing the density. If that's an incorrect assumption, I'm happy to withdraw that, but it just almost feels like a double dipping type situation. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard.
Hi, my name is Leah Gerke, and I live at 526 West Crenshaw Way. My question is drainage. We have a lot of issues. I actually sold most of phase 1 for D.R. Horton in 2006, 7, and 8. And we've had a lot of issues with drainage up there, especially as you go further up the hill. There's a lot of natural vegetation kind of holding that dirt down, and as anybody knows, up in Harvest Hills there's just huge amounts of grade going down, and that's something that a lot of the residents have dealt with up there. Is the water just doesn't really retain. It goes right down the hill. So I'm just wondering how we're going to be putting all these excess houses and taking away all of that vegetation, and how that drainage is going to kind of be controlled as it comes down into the houses, and if there's going to be additional rock walls up there. I mean, there's a really huge difference in height. So just curious on that.
Thank you, Leah. Anyone else?
Ted Boren. I live on T. Rose Court in Harvest Hills. I've just got three questions, and they're really just informational. Are there roads, or is there one road into in this northmost section? Where do the roads come in to Harvest Hills? Are there any that come in? Is it just that one? And then the timing question as well. What's going to be developed first, and when might those units start to come online? And regarding the church lot, is that already approved by the LDS Church? Do they own the property? What's the status of that?
All right. Thank you, Ted. Any other comments, questions?
My name is Jason Kroll. I live in Harvest Hills on 432 Autumn Sky Court, just up against development here. And well, in the previous hearings have expressed concern about traffic and the speed of traffic going through the main artery that connects into Harvest Hills. Some people had proposed making more windy roads and things like that to kind of match the existing Harvest Hills development that slows down traffic, or even roundabouts and things like that, or speed bumps. And so my question is what has already been considered there or already been in play or planned for that, or what can we do to alleviate that so that we don't have a main really fast road where lots of kids are playing. That's the main one. And then also I wanted to know more about not just what's coming in first, but I guess the phases, what's coming in second and third out of each part of this. That was all. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jason. Thank you. Any other comments? Any other public comments? Okay. We will close public comment at this time and then close the public hearing. And we will open this up, to answer the questions. First of all, let's turn the time over to the applicant if you could. Jason, did you have something you wanted to? I'll allow it. But if you would come forward, though.
Question is we have like this frontage road too. When is that going to be coming in? That could help alleviate some of the traffic on that main artery. Sorry, so that was the final one. I apologize.
Okay, thank you. We'll close public comment at this time, and we'll move on. Let's have you, the applicant, answer some of the questions. Did you have a chance to take any of the notes, or would you want me to repeat those?
Yeah, we've
Got
got
'em?
the notes.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Additionally, I've got a handful of things that were brought up during the work session, and I wanted to make sure I answered how we addressed those so that
Great.
you know we worked on those. One of the things that came up was also safety related early on, and that was sidewalks going on both sides of the roads on the way up to the park, and that is something we amended and have changed to, so that's done. The next thing that was discussed in the meeting were trees. There were a couple tree species that were requested to be changed out or modified. We have removed the hackberry from the plan altogether. We did leave the honey locust, but limited it only to open space, so it can't go in park strips. I'm sure we'll talk about signage, so I'll kind of save that for some of the back and forth that I'm sure you'll have some questions. There was a question about the parks and the ADA nature for the ADA equipment, and we have confirmed that the surface that we'll be using for the areas that have ADA is ADA compliant, I guess is the right word. Park equipment, one of the recommendations from staff is specific brands of equipment, and we're open to making sure that brands are selected that are acceptable to the city for long-term maintenance. But the brands that we are recommending, we've sought out hard. I have 4 young children. Their favorite park in the world is in St. George, and I went and directly found out what that equipment manufacturer was. But ultimately, if it doesn't hold up, there's a reason not to. We're open to looking at the best thing. There was a question a couple of times by staff about sensitive lands. In the community plan, there's a master grading plan. In this particular village plan, there was originally one small section of sensitive lands, but the mass grading plan, once that's done, those won't be considered sensitive lands anymore per the community plan. There was a comment, and maybe Kimber can shed some more light on this, but as far as Harvest Hills dedication by February 2017, wasn't aware of the timing unless the city has some urgency. A lot of it depends on timing of phasing of the UDOT frontage road and whatnot when that comes in. But where I was on the recommendation, I wanted to address that. And then, yeah, go ahead.
What are you talking about?
That's what Mindy showed me on the staff recommendations. It talks about a dedication by 17. In the
Oh, of the
engineering
open
comments.
space?
It says
Oh, we'll have
Harvest-
Gordon weigh in on that. I think
Harvest
that's
Park, Harvest Hills Boulevard.
okay. Yeah, that's sorry. I didn't hear what you were talking about there. That was not a planning recommendation, so we'll have to have
Sorry,
you follow
probably-
up with engineering separately.
Okay. Other than that, I have the questions regarding single-family homes. We also own Candlelight Homes. While Candlelight Homes may not build all of the homes in this community, we expect to be building many of them. For these size lots that we're building similar areas, we would expect these to start in the high 2s, likely up into the 4s and 5s. That's on a finished home basis, not a lot basis. Timing, a lot of it, this is kind of a step in the process, as you're aware, so by no means are we ready to start selling or going out to the public yet. We still have, of course, many engineering issues to finalize with staff, and as well as platting processes to go through you, but we would hope to be selling homes next year at some point. The church, LDS Church, does not currently own that property. They would really like to own that property. We are under contract, but until the village plan is approved, they can't plat and close on the property. Schools, we've worked closely with Alpine School District. At this point, often the school districts, both on funding and timing, they're waiting to see true timing before they can fully decide on the school, but we are looking to, we have submitted a modification to the overall community plan to try to address a location for a school in this community. There's a question on water. It'll be obviously required engineering to be completed prior to plat approvals on all of our water systems. At this point, we have preliminary recommendations, but there will be a lot more weigh-in, I would expect, from staff as we finalize terms on some of those water rights and construction related pieces to that. Jumping back, there was...
I can add to that. As part of the condition of approval, they're going to have to bring water. They're going to have to bring facilities, infrastructure, source, storage, distribution. They're going to have to bring all that. And in the course of that, we'll probably be upsizing to, and this goes to the other gentleman's comment. They'll not only bring what they need to cover the demands of this development, will upsize to make our system more robust. So it's a little bit counterintuitive, but handling development in this way actually makes our system more robust than it was before.
Next one on the list was drainage. We're very sensitive to this. We have a similar issue with the water coming onto our property from Camp Williams. But we are working closely with Camp Williams as well as the canal, as well as our engineers in detail designing around this. UDOT is also working in the overall community plan. There's a location for a large pond for UDOT's water coming off of their roads. And hopefully in the end this will end up resolving a lot of the issues that have happened over time, because there is nowhere to really stop or slow the flow coming straight off that mountain right now. There was some language added to the traffic portion of the vehicular plan about traffic calming measures required on certain length roads. Additionally, while it doesn't address it on the main roads, the curvilinear design that we use actually is a very good traffic calming within the neighborhoods themselves. We're very concerned. We feel like it's more likely that the traffic coming out down that hill out of Harvest Hills is a concern to the and hopefully we can make sure those are all addressed and we can have a safe community there. I think I hit them all, but if you have another one, I'm...
Okay, a couple others. Heather Lauder asked about access. Where's the access into this neighborhood?
Good question. So there's a couple points to that. There's an access, there's 3 accesses coming out of Harvest Hills that are shown. Additionally, we do have the right with UDOT as part of our closing to build a construction access down to Redwood Road, which hopefully can help at least with some of the phases with some of that construction traffic instead of rerouting it back through Harvest Hills as we're building roads and whatnot. Additionally, on timing on UDOT, while we can't control or commit to when they build it, we're told that funding for the frontage road on the east side of the corridor adjacent to this village plan has been approved, and we're being told they plan to construct it next year. But that's one of those things that it's not in our control and we have to plan around it. So we're very hopeful. That's a great sales window for us to be able to sell right off of the frontage road.
There was a concern about narrow roads. I think within your development, you addressed that by adding sidewalks on both sides. But there was a question about adding them into an existing neighborhood, Kimber. I can't see. I mean, maybe you'd like to weigh in on that. Okay. Okay, Kevin Ballard had a question about near his flag lot, what you're going to do with the elevation change and how you're going to deal with those lots that are on the east side there, on the diagonal.
I know the lots on the east side, there's quite a bit of grading and work that's planned to take place in that area. As part of the platting, there'll be final grading plans specific to each area to make sure they're buildable lots. Drainage isn't causing problems in neighboring properties and whatnot. So at the point of village plan, we don't have all the final fine-tuned grading plans done for the whole number of lots.
And you'll have those when?
With plats.
Okay. There was a concern about UDOT paying for the Mountain View corridor land, that the developer was getting some kind of compensation with the same number of units.
Yep.
Do you want to hit that?
All right, so that was a discussion that was held during the community plan approval process. So the density was a very large topic, and so in the end, what this density was based on was the R3 zone, which allows up to 3 units per acre. To take into account the fact that there was compensation for this property, the council approved a maximum overall density of around 2.5 units per acre, not 3. And so about 2.5 units per acre was allowed to be transferred into these locations, not the full 3. So that conversation was held and a decision was made, so that's not something that can change now because the council did approve that last year. But it was discussed and addressed throughout the process.
Okay, next question was...
I would just add to that, just to be open, because not everyone was here. The appraisals reflected the adjusted amount with those being taken into account, so it wasn't quote unquote double dipping. The price is adjusted for that.
Okay. Can you address timing and phasing?
Yes. At this point, a lot of it's contingent upon UDOT when we get more firm committed roads. We have utilities being designed on all sections of this village plan and roads being designed. At this point, we're not ready to commit which will be the first phase.
Okay.
Other than I would add, the LDS Church is very anxious to get moving, and they're more than likely to be the very first phase.
Okay. All right, let's see. And then Jason Knoll had a couple things: phasing, frontage road phasing, and what has been considered with the windy roads. Okay, I think we've covered that. Okay, I think we've covered all the questions.
If I could just address one more comment, just because we get this question a lot, and it's about water and adequacy and whether we have enough water. So just to add to what Gordon said, each development that comes into the city is required to bring water with them and improve the overall. It ends up improving the overall system. But not only that, there are different pressure zones in the city, different water sources in the city, and so even though there might have been inadequate water under certain circumstances in one part of the city, it doesn't necessarily mean that's the same case in another. So in this particular location of the city, they're not under the same constraints because of water sources as some of those locations that the public hears about. So I just wanted to specify, kind of explain that a little bit, that this development is being reviewed thoroughly for water, they're bringing in water, and there will be adequate to serve them with what they're improving.
Okay, thank you. And I just, before we move on to the Planning Commission, I want to thank you all for your comments and for coming out and being patient. Okay, let's turn the time over to the Planning Commission. Do you have any comments? Questions? Commissioner Kilgore.
I just had one. So what is the open space situation? I couldn't get it from the report.
Yes, so this project is required to provide 30% open space as part of the planned community zone. They are allowed to get ahead on open space, but not fall behind on open space. So with any phase that comes in, they will have to provide 30% open space. Now that's the simple version. The complicated version is that some of the open space for this project is going to be provided here, which is a pond and park slash pond area as necessary for the Mountain View corridor. So that brings the developer's obligation for open space and also some open space along the Mountain View corridor trail. That reduces the actual percentage that has to be provided within the residential development. And where you see the complicated tables, that is showing actually that they will not be hitting the 30% requirement fully in all of these phases. So any phase that comes in that has 30% open space will be processing a preliminary and final plat, and everything is good. For a phase that comes in and does not meet the open space requirement, they will be dedicating property on the other side of the Mountain View corridor that has been identified for open space. Now, in the work sessions, we discussed how to go about that. What they will be doing, they will have to actually record a plat that will create the parcel that's being dedicated to the city. Otherwise, it's an illegal subdivision and we can't accept it. So along with, let's just pick a plat just for fun. Let's say it's this one, because there's not a lot of open space right in here, right? So if they're coming in for this plat and they don't have enough open space, let's say it's 8% and their obligation is whatever the difference is for 30. They will accompany this subdivision plat with a subdivision plat over here, identifying and dedicating that open space. Now, anytime a plat is dedicated, it also is required to be accompanied by water. So water impacts and water rights will accompany that plat so that if the city is accepting it and ready to maintain it, then we have the resources to do so. Now, if it's not actually going to be public open space, it will be slightly different. It'll still be a subdivision plat with all of those items, but it will remain in the ownership of the developer, but limited as open space. Now, for their open space on this side of the road, there are quite a few native areas that are not planned to be improved with turf and parks and fields. There are, however, some trails shown and other amenities. Those would have to be provided as well. Or some guarantee provided, whether it's with a bond or a development agreement, that those will be provided. So what we're trying to avoid, what we're trying to do is allow them to move forward by providing the open space, but also protect the city so that we don't end up with a useless piece of property that is not going to be a park down the road.
So someone is keeping track of all the deficits and the overages and.
Yes, so they provided, yeah, that'll be me. There will be a spreadsheet, and with each plat that comes in, there's a data table. You're used to seeing those on there where it says what the open space is. That data table is going to be a key tool in tracking this, and then we're going to be keeping a running total as well.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to leave the signage questions to the people who are really feeling about it.
All right. That depends if she wants to. Anyone else? Commissioner Funk.
I had a question. Looking at one of the the maps that we received, it talks about a 5-foot wide parkway. And that's under the sidewalk and whatever plat. Does that mean sidewalks are on both sides of that street? What does that mean? What does the 5-foot wide parkway mean?
Let me turn my mic on. We'll have the applicant weigh in on that explanation while I'm going to pull up the actual community plan so we can go to those pages when you have questions.
It's the pedestrian bicycle plan, section 12, if that helps you.
One sec, I'll pull it up.
And it's S12-1, if that helps you.
If you turn to S11-1, previous
Yes.
page. There's
Which
a-
is the vehicle plan.
Yes. So color coordinated, those colors match.
Right.
You'll see the cross sections below that show the specific description where the sidewalks are, what's in specific park strips
Okay, and that's
that coordinate with the next S12-1 that show.
So his question is the greenway right here. Is this right, Commissioner Funk? Up here?
I'm talking about, okay, so you've got a 5-foot wide sidewalk. That's plain, that's a sidewalk. It's a 5-foot wide sidewalk.
Yes.
But then it says 5-foot wide parkway. Is that sidewalk on both sides? Is that what that's saying?
I see.
Parkway doesn't tell me it's a sidewalk.
Right.
And that's what
That
I'm
makes
just
sense.
questioning. What's that phrase mean?
Got it. So the orange areas
Right.
are what are identified as parkways.
Right,
And then within S11-1,
right, which is the one before it, which shows the street.
cross-section. that
Oh, the
shows
cross-section
what's
is right here.
In those parkways. So you see a 5-foot sidewalk, a 6-foot, or excuse me, a 9-foot park strip with street trees located in those. Both sides. On both sides. And we're zooming in there to show you what that means.
I only see it on one side with the green line underneath the 66.
The 66-foot right-of-way.
It only shows sidewalks on one side.
Yep.
Good catch.
Okay.
There's always one. We found it, now we can go on.
And then my only other comment was, I do have a concern about the signs, and you really haven't gone into that, so I'll just hold off on that.
I think we should get started.
I do too.
Commissioner Steele?
Okay, one of the first things, of course, is the signage, and I thought we put it to bed already, but I guess we hadn't. I could not, I really can't support a 30-foot structure. We've had others come in and ask for it, and we've kind of arched our back and said no, and I think you have a beautiful sign, but I think it'll still be beautiful at 20 feet rather than 30. So I'll start that off. And then we can go for the others. I can't remember how many, and can you put that up on the?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. I certainly couldn't. 2 at 30 feet, no. 20 feet to me should be maximum. And I've kind of said, you know, what's more important, a signage into a residential development or to a hospital. And we told the hospital a long time ago that they couldn't have anything higher than 20 feet. So I think when you take that, it kind of makes you think about it a little bit. the entry feature. I think maybe your entry feature and our entry feature may be a little different, and you'll have to explain that. And the directional signs, you will have, on one of those directional signs, you may have 5 or 6 builders. Is that correct?
Yeah, one of the things we heard loud and clear is no bootlegs. There's a spot that says this can be max 12 feet high in the plan. One of the things that's important to us is not to have every single builder that's into this development have 20 of their own signs all just going all over the place. And so having some branded, uniform, temporary signage that does the key element of getting people to the model homes is critical. But they're temporary, and they do match the code of 12 feet max. Although they won't all be that tall. If there's an area that's only 3 builders, we're not putting 6.
I don't know how to regulate that, because to me, common sense is going to dictate how many of those, at what intersections and what. So I don't know that I would be prepared tonight to say you can have 6 of them or you can have 10 of them, or because as the phases go, as the phases sell out, the needs may be different. So I'll leave that up to.
Under that, we have 3 different, actually 4, although 2 of them are relatively the same. We have the large entrance feature sign. We have 2 signs. She's going to give me the page number, but 2 different types that we also call entrance features. But keeping in mind that this is a hundreds of acre project, you have many neighborhoods. We have a smaller entrance feature sign, the 6-foot signs into each neighborhood. And then in the other accesses into the community, we didn't want, although it's allowed for every primary entrance, we didn't want to put a big tall sign at every single entrance into the community. So the other entrance features are the 6-foot structures as you come in from other entrances to Brand Still, the neighborhood. And then the third sign is the temporary sign as listed on S14-6. We're asking for 14 of them, although we do not plan on having 14 up at the same time. Now is the time for the village plan requirements that we're to identify where they're going. The better we do at this, having good branded sides, the easier it is to fend off the builders with their bootlegs that they put in, because they need the critical mass going into those model homes to make sure they can find them. And as you get these curvy roads and many accesses in off of the frontage road, we need to make sure they can get to Candlelight Homes or whatever other home builder is building in the community. But they are temporary in nature, that fourth type.
Yeah. On this, it says it just wasn't in the comparison.
And on this same page, right under the name of the sign, builder directional sign, it does say maximum height 12 feet. And so the signage on S14-5, while it looks like one sign, they're the same sign look, but these would be used both into the entire master plan, other than the 2 frontage road primary entrances, as well as into smaller neighborhoods that are identified in the village plan.
So two of these?
So they could either say, I can't remember what the neighborhood names are, but a
Seagull Lily right here.
Lily, or it would say Wildflower, depending on where it's located. And then I think all of those fit within your general code and what you're looking for. The big one, there's some differences where we disagree. Part of it we've talked about is the hill. Part of it is that the freeway ultimately coming into the community from below will be 60+ feet below grade. And so we want to make sure it's visible. It's something that looks good, brands the community. Unlike other tall signs or entrance features in that currently exist in the community. This is not big, wide. It's only 5 feet tall, or 5 feet wide at the top, although the base is much more substantial at 20 feet. And we're planning to do a high-end, good-looking community, and we feel strongly with the grade and the slope that we want people to know them. You know where that spot is with those cool entry features. We want to know them. We feel like proportionally they're good with the freeway adjacent to it eventually, and that's why we're proposing to do it. The other alternative is we could, separate the signage and just purely have it as an entry monument and not a sign.
That probably would meet our code better, would it not? I'll ask our planning director. The problem is, if we say 30 feet for you,
It's a process.
Yes, it does. And so I would like to see us stay within the code with the signage. And if the structure then is more of an art piece and a structure, then it can go to 30 feet.
Absolutely.
I would agree with that.
And I'd be comfortable adding 2 of these entry monuments that are 6 feet, not right next to it, but somewhere, you know, at the entrance of the community in those locations, so that the wildflower name is still there, but then it's
Then
not
that
a
would work.
sign.
That would work.
We're okay with that.
Got it. Everybody else?
I'm all for art.
Yes.
I'm in favor of art, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Now, I have another question that is a little more technical. Do we have our traffic, or is your traffic engineer here? Okay.
Yes, he is.
Could he come forward? And Kimber.
Yes.
That's what I was going to say.
Okay.
Please place your hand upon.
Let me see if I can.
Could you state your name and address for us, for the record?
My name is Jeremy Searle. I'm with Hales Engineering, 1220 North, 500 West in Lehigh.
I've
Thank you,
kind
Jeremy.
of made their day today. I don't think they were planning to be here tonight. Okay.
But we're happy to be here tonight.
That's the right answer.
I'm concerned, and we've kind of figured out that there was a miscommunication and that there needed to be a correction made. But I go a little further than that, and I want to ask, the total units for the entire project is 1,000 and something, am I right? 1468. Okay. And then what is that considered phase 1 of the development? Because the way the trip generations are listed is for phase 1. And
So do you mind if I clarify?
okay, it's going to go further though because of the community plan. Okay.
Okay. So again, thank you, Commissioner Steele, for giving us a call this afternoon and giving us a heads up on this. I appreciate that. So I think your question is 2 parts. One, I don't know if you have the traffic study in front of you, but on page Roman numeral 2, we say that the total trip generation for phase 1 of the development is as follows, and provide some numbers. And then we say the total trip generation for both phase 1 and 2 of the development is as follows, right below that. And you can see that there. So the initial question that you called earlier was about this. And I'm glad you found this. As was mentioned earlier, there's always one mistake, right, that gets found. So there was a typo in this. So the first part is correct. The total trip generation for phase 1 of the development is shown there with 5,184 trips per day. Phase 1, as we refer to it in the traffic study, is everything on the east side of Mountain View Corridor. And we broke that up into phase 1 and 2 for our purposes for the traffic study to show everything on the east side and then everything on the west side of Mountain View Corridor. So line below that where it says total trip generation for both phase 1 and phase 2, that should just say for phase 2. So phase 2 of the development is 6,042 trips, and then the total altogether would be 11,200 and something. That makes sense. So our terminology for phasing is a little bit different than theirs. Ours is east side and west side.
Okay. So if there's, round numbers, 1,300 units in the village plan that we're looking at, which is the 1069 and 246, I'm not. Phase 1.
Phase 1 would be consistent with the phasing described in the traffic study, everything east of the corridor, this village plan.
And so if about half of, then another 600 units is on the other side. Okay. Because that the phasing was what was bothering me, because in the community plan, it's like 40-something thousand trips per day.
Yeah, and to again clarify that a little more, the reason that we split it up that way is when we do a traffic impact study, we look at it at different horizon years. So we'll look at the existing conditions,
Right.
and we'll look at future 2020, and then how things look in future for 2040. And so for us, it was easier to split it up into those two phases, is what we called it. Maybe a different term there, but
And in the, I understand this is just a summary. In the traffic study itself, did you have traffic counts that are current for the different intersections?
yes, we took traffic counts this year.
Thank you. Okay, so we just need to change the wording on the traffic study to read for the second paragraph, the phase 1 and then phase 2,
Correct.
period, and then, okay.
Yeah, so in that sense, you just delete out for both phase 1 and those words would be deleted, and
Okay.
that would be correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions for me?
I'm sorry you've had to sit here this long.
Oh, again, I'm happy to be here.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Is that it, Commissioner Steele? That it?
That's it.
Okay. Anybody else? Comments?
I just have a question of clarification. We're talking about the east side, so east of Mountain View. What's the connection points to the west side of this development with Mountain View corridor?
On page S11-1 is probably the easiest spot to see it. You have 3 connection points. One comes off of Harvest Hills Boulevard. That one's
Under Mountain View corridor?
right now. So as part of it, right now they'll build one frontage road. Eventually they'll build a second. At that point, they're all at grade.
So
So
kind of
we'll-
like
we'll
it
build
is
those-
down in the
We'll build those at
north
grade.
end or the south end of Salt Lake Valley.
Yes.
And then you have these other 2, one coming off of Harvest Moon, and another's not connecting directly, is connecting in our neighborhood. But eventually, at least 2 of those, UDOT will have to replace with bridges. At the time they build those freeways, final design's not done, but there's a chance to Harvest Hills Boulevard. It's very close to where it hits grade right there.
So those would be stoplights. If they're similar to the south end of Mountain View corridor in Salt Lake Valley.
I would assume so, yeah.
Okay. All right, and then in your plan, you have the church there, then you have the open space, there's the little, the water storage there. In your open space, there is a big pond currently, I believe.
here?
Yeah. Go to the Google Maps. There's a pond here.
says open space, but I think there's a pond in there.
I see a water tank.
Yeah, but go to the Google Maps.
Oh.
Go to the aerial. Not theirs.
Yeah.
This kind of- Oh, no, you have the irrigation pond listed. Got it.
You have the tank and you have that other notch out. I think that's probably
Okay.
what you're picking up.
Oh, okay.
This,
Yeah. So that is inside the Harvest Hills already?
it's not in, well, this is
I think
called
it's just city
pulled out,
property.
but it's city property,
Okay.
yes. So on their plan, you see the little notch right there.
Okay.
And the same thing for that tank. You see it
Uh-huh.
outlined as well.
Okay. No other questions?
Okay. Any other comments from the planning commission? Okay, I have a question. So this is an administrative decision. This is something that we have to make based upon currently accepted code from the city. In fact, without regard to public clamor or ideas from the public.
Correct.
So based upon the signage, what is our ability as a planning commission to make decisions upon the height limits, et cetera? Could you please discuss that for us before we make a decision?
Yes, absolutely. So as mentioned earlier, the planned community zone does allow applicants to propose their own standards. Those standards are to be necessary to respond to unique circumstances and allow for the creation of innovative development. So those are the types of criteria that you look for, and you also look for consistency within their development. If there's going to be some public benefit that justifies that modification. So for example, in this development, they received smaller lot sizes as a result of transferring and preserving the Mountain View corridor. Now for the signs, one thing that I did mention was that they were reducing the height of the remainder of their monument signs to get 2 signs that were higher. That is something that you can take into consideration. But you can also, as recently, a recent amendment was to a different community plan was denied by the council because they felt that signage was not necessary to respond to those unique conditions. So we've seen it both ways. We've seen signage exceptions granted. We've seen signage exceptions not granted. Whatever you do here, you have the ability to give input to the council on whether you think those signs are necessary and are an exception that you would support. You also have the ability to say no.
So
or to encourage the council to say no.
Everyone else has weighed in on it, and usually I get the last word, and many of the things you guys work out very well before it even comes to me, so I don't even have to ask questions. But the one thing that I wrote here was recommend that your proposals comply most closely with city code existing. There's been very few times that the city council has ever deviated from the city code. In fact, there has to be some extraneous reason to do that. So my own recommendation would be with regards to the signs or anything that is before us tonight is that you adhere most closely to the city code. Because this is an administrative decision. That's all we have is this current city code to go with, and so that's my recommendation, that we go as closely to the city code as possible. Would anybody else like to weigh in on that before we entertain a motion?
I like Commissioner Steele's suggestion.
Okay.
Okay, all I can remember is you said something about art. But if it looked like art, then it's okay. So
that if they separate the sign from the artwork, then the artwork
can be bigger.
can be counted as a structure, and if the structure height limit in the community plan is 30 feet, then it can be 30 feet or 35.
I'm okay with where it's at.
Good answer.
It's the right size.
But
Okay.
Okay, then have we discussed thoroughly? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
yeah. Well, and we've got some amendments to it too. Let me get to it.
One sec.
That would help.
Yep, working on it.
Except on the blank screen.
Yes, it did.
Um,
Yes, it did.
On a side note, if you ever would like to get to your other reports quicker, you can just open the individual files in the packet if it's being really
Yeah.
slow.
I mean, literally, we saw the trees growing on the screen.
Yes,
My home
and
computer does the same thing. I can't watch it
Maybe
go.
we could take a PDF of that or crunch it or flatten it before we.
yes, I actually, for some of the graphics, took a screenshot and converted it to a PDF and inserted it back in, but
you.
that one I missed. Sorry about that.
Trees
Okay,
grew
so
down
your
there.
additional conditions, we have, wrong keyboard, and my computer will not keep doing that.
having
Okay,
problems.
we
I
have,
found it.
I have a Band-Aid on my finger. I apologize if the typing is not that great, as usual, as good as usual. Okay, so adding the sidewalk.
Yeah, we plan to, I think.
Okay.
That was a big.
Okay, and then we've got the signs, what our recommendation is.
Oh, yes, that's
And
right.
I don't know how to turn that.
What do you think? Okay.
And I
Traffic.
think we ought to, okay, on the signage shall be removed from the entry feature. I want to make sure that they get some signage there along with that, you know, not on the feature, but so that somebody knows what it is.
Can I interject on that 5-foot sidewalk? I just want to make sure we're clear that the 5-foot walk will be inserted within the 12-foot park strip, so that the overall right-of-way doesn't change.
Yes.
It's that we're inserting a 5-foot walk within that 12 feet. Okay. Just want to make sure that we're all clear, so there's no.
Is that right?
6C, that's about the traffic? That was the
Yes.
traffic? Okay.
You think what?
What she has there works.
Okay, perfect.
Are we ready?
Separation of the sign.
I've already
My notes.
entertained.
Just looking at my notes here, 1 second.
When you're done.
Paying connections. Okay, yep, those were the only 3 changes.
Okay.
So one side will be 12 foot, the other side will be.
Yeah, where did we end up with the 30-foot or 35-footer?
30 feet.
Where did we end up with that?
Leaving it at 30 feet, but removing the signage from it, allowing them to have one of the smaller monument signs nearby.
Quick question, how tall is the water bucket that's on Redwood Road over here?
About 30.
30? And we didn't have we didn't allow a sign on that, so this
Correct.
seems more consistent.
One more question or clarification. The first stipulation that says all requirements of the city engineer shall be met, and that includes number 9, Harvest Hills Boulevard shall be dedicated before February 2017.
Oh, yes.
Can you
Gordon can
address
weigh in
that?
on that. Thank you.
Yeah, so what that's all about is, that was, in the course of conversations with the Mountain View Corridor folks, they said if that is dedicated before that time, then they'll be able to incorporate that into their project. So, you know, we can discuss that more fully, but I mainly put it in there just so that I wouldn't forget, that we wouldn't forget. I think it's to your benefit if we do that. So let's discuss that more fully. That's what that's all about.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
Still entertaining.
I've still got some questions on that.
Okay.
What the change you're going to make to that? I mean, if it was me, and I'm not an architect, but I would redraw the whole thing and kind of make both sides similar. If you're going to put the 5-foot sidewalk in on the 12-foot park strip, I'm assuming you would have to take out all the trees, and now we're changing our vegetation quite a bit.
We still have 7 feet to put the street trees in, which I believe all of the tree types that we've identified will
fit
in
within
that
that.
7
Okay.
feet just fine.
And that's fine. I mean, whatever works. I just, you know.
Yeah, no, I think this still leaves the flexibility to work within what we've designed, and as we get further along and identifying exactly where the sidewalks and the trees and everything with the planning plans, we'll be able to come and have some additional conversation about that.
That's fine. Okay. I don't want to limit you and make you make some changes that would indirectly change other things.
Are we now ready? I'll entertain a motion.
Based upon the information and discussion tonight, I move to forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the Wildflower Village Plan Area 1 with the findings and conditions in the staff report, with the addition of 3 conditions. 6A, add sidewalk to both sides of the parkway on page S11-1 with the sidewalk inserted into the 12-foot park strip. 6B, signage shall be removed from the 30-foot entry feature. Such signage may be replaced with a smaller monument sign. 6C, revised plan of phase 2 language on page S1433, traffic study.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there a question on the motion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you for your time. And Nathan, I hope that your child who's 2, you'll be able to finish this before she needs to move into one of these.
Duly noted.
All right. Item number 8. This is a work session. Code amendments to Title 19.04, Mixed Waterfront and Buffer Overlay. Turn the time over to Kara.
Hey, Doc. We're going to tag team this one because it's a big one, but we're not going to get too far into the weeds on this. We gave you a lot of language, but we really just want to talk about the approach and concept. What's kind of going on here? It got a little crazy. This is why it's taken so long. I'm sure you noticed. It got a little big. Okay, so the biggest thing we're trying to do, we have a lot of repetitive language throughout the code, and unfortunately that repetitive language is not all written exactly the same. So sometimes there are slight little contradictions. We've seen them, we've amended them, we're constantly amending the code to fix these. We have a table that shows all the setbacks in the different zones and the lot sizes, and then we have a section for each zone. What we're really wanting to do in 1904 is clean this up, simplify it. If there is a requirement for a buffer between residential and commercial, there should be one statement in the code that there is a buffer between residential and commercial. If there is a requirement for 2 parking stalls for a single-family dwelling, it should all be in one parking area. The other thing that we're looking at doing is we would like to get away from this idea that, it kind of came up tonight, get away from the idea that if you're in an R3 zone, you get 3 units per acre. We hear that all the time from developers wondering why they can't get 3 units per acre. So you see a couple of things. We're putting together a summary here of the land use regulations, what the intents are of each zone. We have a little paragraph. All of the numbers, the setbacks, the lot sizes, the frontages, they're going into one table where it's easy. You only amend one spot as opposed to 2 or 3 or 4 locations in the code. And then we're hoping, we want to get your feedback on this, but rename some of the zones. So instead of an R3 zone where you get 3 units per acre, you have an R1 zone, which is 1 unit or single family homes, -10, 10,000 square foot lots. So then they come in and a developer comes in and looks at a property and goes, okay, I can put 10,000 square foot lots here, not I can get 3 units per acre. It just kind of flips the thinking. Same thing, the R120, the R140. Now we went with round numbers because 1 acre lot is 43,560. We didn't want to have an R1 43,560, but we can talk about that. So we're looking at creating the residential 2-family zone as opposed to just immediately jumping into multifamily. Although we jump into the 2-family, 3-family zone. So we would have a 2-family zone, a 2-family, 3-family zone, and then the multifamily zones. And so this is basically what we're proposing is it looks like a ton of text and changes. For some reason, the renames here didn't really show. Whoops, whoa, I keep doing that. Here we go, showing the new name, showing the units with the maximum ERUs that as it currently stands. Again, getting away from the maximum ERUs in these zones, the R1 zones, the single family zones, and now when you get into a multifamily zone, they all have similar minimum lot sizes and unit sizes, so you do have to go back to a units per acre, but just for those multifamily zones. Otherwise, you're just looking at lot sizes, you're looking at the open space requirement, you're looking at the parks and amenities, you're really looking at the design and livability as opposed to just getting hung up on density. You're looking at a certain feel for the development, you're addressing impacts. We talk about that a lot on the Planning Commission. What are the impacts? What is the desired outcome? Instead of having this whole hang up over density, we're going to try to change the conversation a little bit. Now we thought that would be really straightforward and easy, but when we started doing that, we realized there are design standards in every single chapter of the code. Remember the conversation we had about parking lot buffers? They were in the zones, they were in the parking lot standards, they were in the landscaping standards. We're out there, we're chasing them, we're playing hide and seek with all these different sections, and it's blown up into a really big process that we're working on. We actually have a dedicated meeting every week where we go into a room, shut the door, and just work on code because otherwise you can't get away from your phone and projects and whatnot, so we can try to get this done. This also, the mixed waterfront has kind of gotten hung up in this because we don't want to create a whole new zone. Same thing with community commercial. We don't want to create a whole zone, write a whole chapter, and then come back and delete that to make it more streamlined. So we're bringing the community commercial zone through with this at the same time. The mixed waterfront overhaul is going to come with this because it's going to fall into a similar structure. We're working on the design standards. Now the design standards, I would like your input on that. We've been working on those, and as it stands, we pulled the design standards from our architectural design standards, the actual document, and then we also pulled all the different design standards throughout the code. That chapter is 17 pages long without the images right now, so we're trying to shorten that and streamline it and make it more user-friendly. So if there are any crucial things in the design standards you don't want us to delete, please email us in the next week and let us know what you definitely want to keep, because we're going to be slashing. There are all sorts of formulas about this, that, and the other. It looks like an architect's dream. It was done by an architect, and it's been great, but it's really complicated, And it would be nice to have something that a typical developer could look at, understand, and still achieves the same goal.
Does that have to go into the code? Can it just be?
Well, it's already been adopted by ordinance, so it's already binding, and so we would prefer to have it in the code so it's all in one place for everybody.
It absolutely needs to be adopted by ordinance, but whether or not you want to have it as part of a separate code, I guess, so to speak, that's of course your call on that.
Annex or something. I don't know.
But it's either way, it's an ordinance, it's a legislative decision, it's law.
Done one way or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called a land use, LUDMA, which is the Utah Land Use Development and Management Act, would term this as a land use ordinance. That would have to go to the Planning Commission for recommendation and the council.
Okay.
So a couple other things that are happening along with this. You've seen our open space code, which we're really excited about. We've started applying it hypothetically to new developments. We had a resubmittal on a subdivision plat that came in the other day. We applied it. It looks like it's going to work. Edge Homes, it's been adopted. Our first adoption of our open space code was, a little plagiarism over there, included as the open space standards for the Mount Saratoga project. But it seems to be working there. We learned a few lessons, some loopholes that they identified and corrected in their plan, which was great to their credit, and we have done the same thing. So because we're overhauling 1904, we don't want to be amending it right now to change all these references to open space, so that's going to come at the same time. We're also putting in standards for footprint development, because right now we kind of have to do this dance around the code to figure out how to allow a project where people just own the footprint and the remainder is commonly owned. We're also looking to remove equivalent residential units from the residential portion, because if you have a 4-bedroom house or you have a 1-bedroom apartment, we count it as one ERU because one family occupies that. And it gets confusing when you try to translate that into things like churches and whatnot in terms of density. We're still measuring that, the ERUs for sewer impact and water impact and traffic impact, but we don't want to have that confusion in these residential zones. Sensitive lands and open space, that's all going to be replaced with a new code. And we're going to be adding the overhaul to the mixed waterfront. We're really excited about this, as well as the buffer overlay. We took our field trip almost a year ago to go visit all of these communities, and since then have been working on the draft, communicating with various professionals in the field, sending out our drafts for comment. The last couple of months it's been waiting for all of this new format to be working, so we're going to bring that together. We're going to have some hearty meetings here on code, so we're going to have one more work session, try to break it up where we look at the actual final version and spend some time in it. Our goal is to have this done by the end of the year, so that means a work session at your next meeting, then we start jumping into public hearings, and at least get it to the council by the end of the year. With personnel changes and massive amounts of projects, it's taken longer than we expected, and obviously, as you noticed, it's been like a snowball where, oh, we're just going to amend the setbacks. It started as setbacks. We're amending setbacks, and this is what came out of that. So you got to be careful what you wish for. Carrie, you had one other thing you wanted to say?
Stick to scope.
Got it. Stick to what?
Stick to the scope.
Yeah, stick to the scope, exactly. This was a case of scope creep. Yep. Do not ever trust me with a project like a remodel, because it will end up being quite massive. But this has actually been on my list to do since I got here 3 years ago, where I went through the code and went, question mark, why? Question mark, oh no. Things like that, where I went through the code and identified all the things that I thought would be great. Now the code functions well, it's been great, but cleaning up 1904 has been on my to-do list for a long time. But you guys get a round of code amendments every other month. Obviously, we have a lot of things to do, and it's great. It's getting a lot better. This just hasn't come to the forefront until now, and we're really excited for it. So we're just looking for your feedback on the concept, the approach, any ideas that you have, how you feel about the names, how you feel about the structure, how you feel about the design standards, and that's about it. We're not going to get into the weeds too much on it tonight, hopefully. Although we're happy to if you want to. We're good with, mowing grass. So.
I just had a question on the sensitive lands sentence. It used to say no sensitive lands will be calculated into the total amount. Now it says 50% will. Tell me about the thought that went behind it.
So the thought process behind that, that's something that I've seen in other communities as the result of developer challenges, where they own property that the city has that a city or county has defined as sensitive lands, and they don't get any development rights on it. And so the compromise that I saw in other communities was allowing them to have density calculated, but a much lower rate. You can even go much further than that if you want, and you don't necessarily have to allow them to get a density calculation. It just helps avoid some of those challenges. I don't know if Kevin has any thoughts on that. So,
What's the criteria for determining whether it's a sensitive land or not?
we have a definition that includes slopes over 30%, wetlands, drainages, hazard areas, landslides, things like that. Those are sensitive lands.
I won't be here, or probably won't be here at the next meeting.
Oh, okay.
And so I have some in the weeds. I have some comments if I could make those tonight. I'm hoping I can attend electronically, but the jury's still out because we don't know if this system's going to work with my computer.
Right. Now, the other thing, if anyone does want to meet one-on-one, we're happy to do that because of the scope of this as well. If these are items you want the whole commission to hear, though, that's different.
I'm the mixed waterfront. I know we wanted to do a matrix, but I looked at that and I got my brain hurt.
Ours did too.
And I will tell you that having had clients come to me and say, do you want to, will you go and find out what I can do on this piece of property? If I came in and I looked at that, I'd say, let's go find another piece of property somewhere else. It needs to be simplified a little bit. There's a place where you talk about multifamily having a minimum width for having a 5-foot driveway. We need to put in there somewhere, if we're going to do it that way, a minimum width for the alleyway.
Okay.
Again, there's a place where it says minimum dimensions for open space. Oh,
yeah, okay, sorry.
You fixed it one place in our report, but not the other place, but you fixed it. Okay.
During our code meeting.
And now going back, and I understand that the mixed waterfront's still kind of a blank canvas. But I'd like to go back to some of the changes in the 1904. Okay. You're leaving our multifamily with so many units per acre. I have a problem with that. If we could put up to, because every one of them that comes in here will shoehorn 18 units on an acre, whether it really works or not, and says, but your code says. Right. And if we put up to, then we have a way to say, this is over impacting.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody agrees with me on that.
So would it still be a determination, or are you talking about a density determination at that point where someone would come in and have a specific density granted or a specific number of units granted by the council?
Well, if we leave it at 18 units per acre, say, I'm here to tell you that rarely can you get a project that meets all of the criteria for parking, landscaping, building footprint, access. Rarely can you get 18 acres.
So you're just saying treat it like we are now, but you're not talking about a separate density determination.
No, just the terminology.
Just the terminology, so we don't have a
one thing we need to be really careful here is when you change the code to a certain degree that it in effect is a zone change. You got to be really careful because then you have to provide a specific notice to the property owner that the zone is being changed, and here is what is allowed under the prior version, here is what's allowed under the new version. And so just with any of this that we're discussing, we have to be very careful that we're not changing the zone, because we don't want to provide notice to all the property owners in Saratoga Springs. That would be very, very costly.
Okay, and I don't want the city to have to do that. I'm just concerned, we had a project come in, and they actually did come in and say, well, your code says that we can get, I've forgotten, was it 10 or 10 units to the acre, and that's what we want to do, and this is how we're going to do it. And it was awful. It didn't work. But our code said 10 units per acre, and they thought that was their entitlement to that. And so that's the reason I just wanted to add in up to, because then that'll let them know that, yeah, if you can get it on there and get it to look right, yes, you can have that many, but it's not a given that you can get that many.
As long as we are specifying that that's not a separate determination, because the language up to all of a sudden could be interpreted by the planning commissioner or council member as a separate decision as to density, and so we just have to walk that line there.
So I think we're fine on that, just because the code currently says maximum ERUs. So I think we're good. We're just changing the terminology to be more clear for the user. And then the other changes are not actually affecting the overall density that people are getting. It's just communicating it in a different way. Right, hopefully.
Okay, the other one is the ADU overlay available.
That is pending the results of what happens with the ADU code as well.
Okay, I was hoping maybe getting this special zone might preclude that. So, how will that work? Because not every area will be able to have the overlay.
Right. This, like I said, this is just a placeholder depending on what happens with what the council decides to do and the planning commission with ADUs.
Okay.
We do not recommend having the ADU overlay in the higher density zones. It should only be in the lower density, so you have a few larger lots that have them, as opposed to trying to take an R10 and turn it into an R18.
Okay. Now then, on the R26, it says maximum square footage 8,000, or no,
minimum
minimum square footage 8,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I like that, but is that going to be confusing with R26?
R26. Oh, I see. Right.
Should that be R28?
Yes.
And then
R35. Yeah, those should change.
So R18 should be R19?
That should have actually said 8,000. So yeah, we have a few things to clean up. The R120 as well, so. Where? Oh, right, okay. 1R, correct, okay. Get that. Okay, we'll clean that up.
Okay, there's somewhere in the waterfront overlay, I just found a note to myself. Let's see if I can get it here. Black screen. There's a place where you have that you can have a 0 setback as long as there's a 10-foot sidewalk. Do you know the place where I'm talking about? Okay. Are we talking about if the house faces the river, then and they can have a 0 setback and a 10-foot sidewalk?
Go up a little bit, Kimber, if you would. It's right there. Stop. So that refers, the asterisk refers to, it's under other development. So if you can see it in the keep going down. There, stop. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's straight side.
Yeah.
I thought there was another place. Exception. The front and side yard setbacks may be decreased to 0 feet. Okay, the question I would ask it, I think you say no part of the dwelling or the building shall be, okay. What if somebody decides to put in a window shaker or something like that, that is not part of the building?
What?
A what?
A what?
A window shaker? No, a portable air conditioning unit. I can tell, I guess I'm older than.
What era is that from?
Oh, what?
I've never heard of it.
Okay.
You can just put something in that nothing shall protrude out past
But, because somebody could put in a window box and it would protrude, so if we need to make some. Not if it comes out over there. And I agree, I think it'd be pretty, but it's, you know. We're in the weeds here. There's another place that I've got. Quit squirming, Brandon.
Can we get recliners on?
Okay. Just the table that you have for mixed waterfront on page 17, it is very confusing. Yeah.
That was one of my questions, is what is this?
Yeah. So this took quite a while to figure out how to do this. So this is the incentive table. That's what it is. So basically, can I borrow the mouse? Where's the mouse? Thank you.
Okay. What's the not permitted in the, if you give 50% of a 50-acre parcel for commercial, then why don't you have some units permitted?
Are you talking about these ones right here? The not permitted
Right.
items? Okay. So we'll kind of explain it and we'll get to that. So basically this table here is the percentage of land area devoted to commercial, because we want to have a nice mix of the commercial to residential. That's the whole point of the incentive program. And then that's all based upon your acreage. So between 0 and 5%, that's how much commercial that you're providing, you can get, for example, if it's 1 to 5 acres, it's 2 units. It kind of bases your unit, how many units you can have. So when you get up to, for example, more than 50 acres and you're providing 11 to 25% commercial, we're starting to get quite high in the amount of commercial as compared to residential. So when you exceed that and you start getting above 25%, you can't even go there. You have to be under the 25%. Otherwise, you're too much commercial and not enough residential to obtain that balance.
That's confusing, the way it's put. I know you've worked really hard, but yeah, let's change something there.
Yeah, I didn't get that at all when I was trying to read.
But does the approach make sense, though, that we're trying, because remember, there used to be a straight requirement, 80% residential, 20% commercial. And this allows for some flexibility there, and if you provide 0 commercial, okay, you can still develop your property, but you're only getting 2 units per acre, right? If you provide 11% commercial or 25% commercial, you can suddenly get more residential on the remaining piece. So that's the attempt that we made here. Clearly it didn't work very well, but we'll keep working on that a little bit.
The other part of this too that I'll add, so we would like to see, the bigger developments. We don't want to see it chunked off into little tiny pieces, because if it's in little tiny pieces, it probably won't work. Is a good way to put it. You lose, what you would have in a larger, more comprehensive plan. So that was kind of part of the approach with this as well.
The one thing I would say, if we're getting it so complicated that we who are here don't really understand it.
Get red flag.
Red flag.
Got it.
And if, what I would hate to see happen, and I have seen it happen in jurisdictions, that if you talk to one planner one day, you will get one answer, and the next day you will talk to somebody else and you will get a different answer. And it would be nice if it's readily, interpreted only one way.
But the intent is good.
Okay,
The
that's-
direction is good.
Thank you. We just wanted to make sure you were okay with that too. So.
All right, is that good for the working session? Any other comments that you have?
I had on page. Oh, I know the page on the packet, but. Let's see. Oh, it's it says numbers. Oh, open space and landscaping a requirement. You had question marks about open space shall include park space. Question mark, question mark, question mark. Something that you need discussion on?
The reason for those is because of what's going on with 1904 and with the open space. So the reason it's all outlined in that highlighted color is because it's dependent upon the other sections of code and how they go.
Okay.
So that will be cleaned up as we get further into the process.
That's true also for the minimum width as well. You had this.
Yeah.
Same thing. Okay.
How's it gonna work with the private space also being part of your open space?
So, good question. What we are anticipating is, so in the open space draft, which we didn't include this time just because there was way too much to provide. And the open space you've seen a couple times, we had a few clarifications. By the way, the baseball points were off. We're getting that fixed. Yeah, maybe a couple others. And anyway, so in that, you have the requirement that for every 40 units of development, you have an acre of park space, okay? And then related points. But to keep it from being too bare bones in terms of space, we also have a minimum, a floor of 10% or 15%, depending on the type of development. So what we'll do is in those mixed developments as well, we'll have, okay, yes, your private space is counting. Yes, your gym or your rooftop gardens are counting. But we're also going to have just a general requirement for a minimum within that development. I believe it's 15% that we're going to have in those zones, so that there's still a sense of openness, even if they're enclosing some of it elsewhere.
Can I just add something really quick? So one thing that we have done, so if you look at 6A, under open space, there should be a minimum requirement of 25%. So I actually struck that this morning because we added it into the open space draft. So we're kind of getting there.
Yeah, synergy.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for reading that huge packet. We're really excited about this, so we appreciate it.
Okay, let's move on to item number 9, approval of minutes. Everybody had a chance to take a look at the minutes from September 8th. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
This one. I don't think.
I move that we approve the minutes for the City of Saratoga Springs Planning Commission meeting held on September 8th, 2016.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second motion.
We have a second. Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All, any opposed? Okay.
Please
passes.
have the record reflect that I abstained since I wasn't here.
Thank you. And we'll turn over the time to you, Kimber, for reports of action.
Okay, we actually do have reports of action tonight. We haven't had them for a while, but we do have one on the Hadco rezone. So a quick summary, we have a rezone. It was a development agreement, meeting date, item 6, Kirk was chair. The Planning Commission action was approval with conditions. Staff presented the staff report. There was no public input. Key points for the Planning Commission, I'm pretty sure I missed some because I was taking notes on questions and whatnot as well. So if you could just look at your comments really quickly up here on the screen. and let me know if I missed any of your comments. You good? Did you see anything? Okay. You're good? Okay. Oh, no. I just wanted to make sure you looked and saw if you had any additional things. Okay, everybody good? You didn't actually make comments on it. Moved for a motion. Okay. The rezone, Commissioner Funk made the motion, read it from the report. This is copied and pasted from the report. Commissioner Kilgore seconded. It was a combined motion. Well, it was two motions. You took one vote, but you made two separate motions. Also made the motion to forward a positive recommendation for the MDA. And the additional conditions were to, the uses in the MDA shall include all conditional and permitted uses in the industrial zone, and then replacing condominium and dwelling with lot or unit in the MDA. That's sound right? Okay. Commissioner Kilgore seconded the motion, and the motion passed 6-0. So if there are no changes to this, go ahead and vote to approve that, and then we'll print it and get that signed. And we do have one more for the wildflower project.
Did you want to bring up that first page? Okay. I'll entertain a motion on this.
This one, right?
Yep.
I move that we approve the report of action on the HEDCO rezone from A to I and the MDA.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a question on the motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, so the next one is the wildflower community or village plan. This thing is really twitchy. Okay. So it is not a general plan and code amendment. I'll fix those. This was a community plan, so it'll be here under other. The action of the Planning Commission was,
I'm going to delete the other ones.
it was approval or positive recommendation. The staff report, for the staff presentation, we presented the staff report, responded to public comments. The applicant did not give a presentation but answered comments. I just made a reference to official minutes. It got pretty complicated. They agreed to make the proposed sign and entry feature and remove signage. The public concerns were timing and pricing of units, proposed square footages, schools, construction, traffic, water, traffic, people speeding through the neighborhood, open space and steep slopes, double dipping on density, drainage, connections to Harvest Hills, phasing, status of the church parcel, more comments on speeding, and timing of the Mountain View Corridor frontage road. And here is the Planning Commission discussion. Commissioner Cunningham, I definitely did miss your comments here. Signage, yes, okay. Edit anyway, okay.
I was in favor of going to an art feature instead of
Art feature, fantastic. Thank you for your patience while I edit this. Okay. Did I miss anyone else's comments? If so, I apologize. And this is general gist. Oh, yes. Sorry, my Band-Aid hits the... I know. Use caution when washing knives.
Yeah. Cut my hand.
All right. Any other comments? Good. All right, Commissioner Steele made the motion to forward a positive recommendation with the findings and conditions in the staff report, and then the 3 changes in 6A, B, and C, which were adding sidewalk to both sides of the parkway on page S11-1 with the sidewalk into the park strip, removing signage from the entry feature, and allowing a monument sign in place of that, and then revising the Phase 2 traffic study. Commissioner Funk seconded the motion. It passed 6-0.
Run it back up to where I...
General gist. So these don't replace the minutes. It just helps the council and staff in terms of documentation. Okay, if we can get that.
Entertain a motion.
I move that the Planning Commission approve the report of action for the Wildflower Village Plan.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any question on the motion? What's the question?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, none opposed. Motion passes. Yeah, I'd like that one. Are we done with the reports of action?
We're done with those, yes, thank you.
Okay, commission comments.
I just have one. I was ready to call the city and raise a bit of Cain about all of the political signs. And when I drove out and drove in today, there was only one for sale sign. I suspect it went up after they removed them today. It looked nice.
I have a couple comments. I apologize for not being here last time. I actually thought it was the first Thursday of the month and just spaced it off. My wife said, "Are you sure you don't have to go?" Of course, it's the 7th. So I was wrong. I'm sorry about that. I also wanted to say I'm part of I'm on the steering committee for my college alumni association, and we're sponsoring a lecture from a professor who's going to be in town. It's going to be held at the Leonardo on the 4th of November, and the topic is what makes a great city. He's got a book and everything, and but the reason why I bring it up is because it's it will be promoted by the Utah American Planning Association conference in Salt Lake City. So the Salt Lake City, I guess it's Salt Lake City Planning Commission will be promoting it, and so I just thought I'd let you know. I'll write up an email and maybe send it to Kimber.
Yeah, send us
and
the
then I'll send it
details.
to everybody. So I mean, it's a ways off. It's in November, but
Is it in the daytime or in the evening?
it's right now planned for 6. There'll be hors d'oeuvres at 6 o'clock, and then it'll start at 6:30 in the evening. But it is a weekday. So, but just so you know, but I'll send out an email for that. Thanks.
Great, thank
Okay,
you.
great. Any other comments? Okay, director's report.
All right, so just really quickly, in terms, you saw in your packet, you saw the applications memo on some of the things that have come in. Council actions from this last week, they approved the code amendments for directional signage, clear sight triangle, a couple minor tweaks, but basically as you recommended, buffering and screening. They also approved the Saratoga Springs commercial rezone and Papa's Car Wash site plan and conditional use permit. On your next agenda, your next meeting, which is October 13th, we're going to continue the work sessions with some tightened up language on the items that we talked about tonight. And we may or may not have some development applications on that night if they get some resubmittals in on time. So, and that is it.
Okay.
I was just wondering which one of those development applications were coming in.
Oh, probably nothing.
All right. We adjourn.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. What's your idea on the table?
That is true.
That was terrible last night.
Oh, I know, it was so bad. I came through and cut across from 15 to the point of the mountain.
I had to go pick up my wife at the airport.
Oh, what
the
a
airport
yuck.
and back. And, oh my goodness. I didn't think I'd ever get up there.
Hey, I'm not taking any of that pie home, so go at it. Yeah, I'm coming.
Kimber, what the email was. My hamstrings. I don't know. I don't know if I can stand